In today's video, we're going to look at predicted points across all positions in FPL: goalkeeper, defenders, midfielders, and our forwards. Let's jump in to see who has the most predicted points in their positions. Here we are with the points predictions tool from Fantasy Football Hub, showing you all of the predicted points they have down for the players in FPL. Now, it's currently 50% off if you want access to this software. If you want to do that, go click the link in the description. And also, if you do not win your mini leagues, you are guaranteed to get a refund and get your money back, which sounds like a crazy deal, and for me is a really worthwhile investment. Terms and conditions do apply, but definitely go check that out if you want a little bit more data and access to some really great FPL tools. But let's start off with the goalkeepers. Predicted at the top at a 5.5 price tag, we have David Raya. Now, David Raya has been in a few of my drafts. Of course, a nice opening fixture here with Wolves at home. And also, I think Arsenal defensively this season are just going to be fantastic. Last season, they were really great defensively, but, you know, they're an absolute unit of a team. And, you know, I think they could go on to win the league this season. That's how, you know, serious they've gotten as contenders to the likes of Man City. And of course, Edison just underneath David Raya here. Of course, this is predicted points across the first 8 game weeks. I believe I've got that filter on. Yes, the first 8 game weeks, it's telling you the predicted points from. So of course, Edison is going to be amongst that with how good City also are defensively. But for me, it's difficult to often pick these goalkeepers at the high price points because, you know, one goal and, you know, a lot of their points are then diminished because they don't particularly get a lot of save points. We've been so sound defensively normally, such as like an Arsenal, they don't face too many shots. So, you know, the additional points you're getting there for saves aren't really, you know, building up as much. And with the bonus point changes to goalkeepers as well, I believe it was penalty saved on has now been you know, nerfed and not as good. So, you know, paying high prices for goalkeepers, in my opinion, can work in some situations, but, you know, especially in this season, I'm not sure it's worth it. But David Raya has definitely been amongst some of my drafts. We're going to scroll down here to some of the other priced options. Of course, Alisson Becker underneath the other 5.5s here. A decent option, but I prefer other Liverpool defensive assets like Quansah and Trent Alexander-Arnold. You're looking at a Martinez at a 5 million price point and to be predicted the most points out of the 5 million assets. Of course, when it sort of hits that game week 3 mark, we go into a nice run of fixtures of Leicester, Everton, Wolves, Ipswich, and Man United at home. It's obviously these first 2 of West Ham away and Arsenal at home, which kind of puts a lot of people off starting with those sort of Aston Villa assets. But I do think he is an okay option if you want a little way into the Aston Villa defence, but not sure where to put your money. Quansah is 4.5, so again, that kind of worsens Martinez as an asset. For some reason, the other day, I tinkered with the idea of having a rotating pair of keepers in a bench boost draft of Martinez and Pope. It worked really well in the draft, but obviously you don't want to be spending £10 million on 2 goalkeepers. You want to keep it as cheap as possible. And of course, if you're picking players like Martinez, you're going to probably start them, you know, most weeks as your starting goalkeeper, obviously being of a higher quality at that 5 million price point. At 4.5, you have Ipswich's keeper here. I think it's pronounced maybe Muric. Yeah, I don't think it's a really good pick. Of course, predicted points are up there because they have somewhat of a fixture swing in game week 3 where they have a little break from the start of the season they're facing in Liverpool and Manchester City away, which is just a ridiculous start for a newly promoted side. But yeah, coming into some okay fixtures after that in game week 3. Maybe that's why the predicted points are so high for Ipswich's goalkeeper. And then Flecken coming in at that 4.5 mark with some okay fixtures across the first 8/7. Of course, some really stinking ones in Liverpool, City and Tottenham amongst there as well. So maybe having a rotating goalkeeper alongside Flecken, which is something I've kind of tinkered with in my personal drafts, could be the way to go just to cover game week 2, 4 and 5. But that is the goalkeepers. Of course, Raya topping things off there at the high end of 5.5. Now, moving over now to the defenders. Obviously, we're starting at the very top here with Guardiola, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Gabriel. In many cases in your teams, this could actually be your backline. Guardiola, Trent and Gabriel. Of course, White sneaking in underneath Gabriel here, but at an extra 0.5 million. Do you guys think it is worth it to pay that 0.5 more for White? I wasn't too sure, and I still think it's maybe the best idea to go with the £6 million Gabriel asset, although you need to be careful of Calafiori possibly coming in and taking minutes later on down in the season. Trent and Guardiola obviously topping these predicted points. For me, Guardiola recently, from the information we've kind of found out of how City are maybe going to start playing this season a little bit differently. We might not see it as Guardiola as high as we hope. So for me, these predicted points may be incorrect and need a little bit of a shuffle around, but you never know. Guardiola might go and start playing left wing like he did at the end of last season. Of course, Trent, I think, kind of speaks for himself, but especially in this Arne Slot system has been really fantastic, and of course proven that in the pre-season game just the other day, which was really excellent to see. Let's scroll down a little bit more and see who else we have got on this page. We've got 2 City assets there with obviously decent fixtures for City. City are, basically fixture proof. They're a fantastic side. A lot like Arsenal, are going to, put a good chance up for a clean sheet. For me, Arsenal obviously have a better chance of a clean sheet. In my opinion, they are a better defence, just more solid. Pedro Porro sneaking in here as a 5.5 asset. Of course, Ruben Diaz and Kanji 5.5, but I feel as though this asset here, Pedro Porro at 5.5, is the best 5.5 asset, especially with the 2 opening fixtures. That is, obviously they're great. You kind of go into some more difficult ones in Newcastle away, which actually I wouldn't mind playing Pedro Porro against Newcastle away. I think it would be more of a goal fest type of game. There was a lot of goals in their sort of fixture against Newcastle, both home and away, both teams getting their respective wins. So yeah, that could be an interesting game to have him. Of course, Arsenal, you're not really going to want to play Pedro Porro against Arsenal, and then moving into some more easier fixtures in Brentford, Man United away from home. Maybe Man United have got maybe the swing of some new signings and their team by then, so maybe that's a hard fixture down the line. But let's load some more. We kind of want to see, what are the value options you can go for, and I think as soon as I said value option, Quansah has popped up there. And for me, at 4.5, if you don't have someone like Trent in your team, or you fancy the double up on the Liverpool defence, Quansah's your guy at 4.5. It seems like he's earned the place next to Virgil van Dijk, especially with the injury to Konate. And maybe when he comes back, Konate starts taking minutes off Quansah, but I think he is preferred by Arne Slot anyway. He's a young talent that needs development, but has put up some great numbers, especially for players his age and position. So yeah, really do quite like Quansah, and he was in my draft just last night. You've kind of got Romero here at 5 million. I think if you're going for a Spurs defender, you're not really going for Romero. You are going for someone like Pedro Porro, just for that attacking potential, in my opinion. Although Romero did score quite a lot of headers for Spurs, or at least what I remember from watching their game against Arsenal. I think Romero hit maybe the post twice with headers from corners. So obviously the threat is there. Whether he can put them away this season, we will see. Cash popping up there at 4.5. That really does surprise me because I'm not too sure how Aston Villa will line up this season at their fullback. So there was maybe rumours of a £4 million option starting to emerge at right back, but I haven't heard anything more on that. Dan Burn there at 4.5, and obviously Lewis Hall on the same page here. I do think I prefer Lewis Hall with maybe the incoming Mark Gahey to Newcastle, is what it seems like it's going to happen. But yeah, some really good other options here in Munoz as well of Crystal Palace. I do like him at 5 million. Very attacking, people have mentioned. I personally haven't watched a lot of him, but I heard that he scores goals for fun with Colombia. So yeah, that's always a great sign. In terms of points predicted, maybe we can see some £4 million assets on the next page. If not, we will move on. Let's take a look. Mikalenko, decent option there. Dalot, no. But maybe the only price point we're missing on these first few pages is a £4 million asset. And that's because, obviously, there's not a lot to pick from in terms of 4 million assets. But Barco does pop up in my mind as the best £4 million asset. And I do know he has predicted the most points out of all £4 million defensive assets. So another one to look out for. Now, moving over to the midfielders, of course, you have some real premium boys up at the top here. There's a lot of midfield options that we kind of want to cover in these first two pages here, so I'll try to be quick with it because I know that defensive bit was a bit too long. But hopefully you're getting all the information you need from this video in terms of who to look out for in the first few weeks. Salah, obviously, at 12.5. Predicted a lot of points, and especially that opening fixture is very enticing for people to start their teams off with Salah. But then obviously the debate of, can you play both Haaland and Salah in the same team, or if you just want one of them, who do you go for? I'm not too sure at the moment which way I lie. I will be posting my final team selection probably tomorrow or the day after for you guys to check out. But let's keep going with the predicted points here. Palmer up there. I don't really like Palmer as a pick to start the season off. Let's just assess where he's going to play, how he's going to play, and yeah, how he does in this new system. Maybe Pochettino just made him an absolute dog, but we definitely know he can play ball for sure. Saka, another baller. Like, fixtures don't really matter for Saka here, in my opinion. You've obviously got some tough ones that Arsenal do have. You've got your Aston Villa, your Tottenham, and your City in that first sort of 8 fixtures, but you've also got some really nice fixtures as well. And of course, being a midfielder, you do get an extra point for a clean sheet, which is always a nice little add-on. Penalty taker, just like Eze, penalty taker here at 7 million. Obviously predicted a lot of points. Eze, I'm not too sure if he'll live up to the hype, but we know how good he is, and we know how good Palace were at the end of last season. Hopefully they can continue on, and Eze at 7 million will be an absolute bargain. Son, is he going to be on penalties now? Solanke as at Spurs. We don't actually know who's going to take the penalties, but if Son's on penalties, 10 million with them fixtures opening up isn't a bad shout if you rate the Tottenham attack. De Bruyne, 9.5 million. Don't think he's going to start necessarily against Chelsea. I think he'll come on off the bench, sort of lacking pre-season minutes, just like Foden down here at the bottom. You'll see these first 2 fixtures here are down in predicted points because of that fact of pre-season minutes has been low. Bruno Fernandes and Odegaard, probably my favourite 8.5 sort of range players. I do think I prefer Fernandes over Odegaard, and that kind of makes sense when you look at the predicted points here. Fernandes just edging Odegaard out, and of course is on penalties. Jarrod Bowen, I don't like the opening fixtures for West Ham, and I do think they'll be struggling to start off the season. I don't think they'll hit the ground running. I hope they prove me wrong, because I do like West Ham as a football team. But let's keep going. 7.5. You're kind of looking at a lot of assets here in terms of Gordon and Diogo Jota. Diogo Jota is in my latest personal team, which you might see him in tomorrow. We'll see how the draft goes from tonight. And Kunku also in my personal team at the moment, 6.5. Although Chelsea have a difficult fixture in City to open up, their fixtures really open up past game week 2 onwards. So I do really like Nkunku as a pick, maybe the best value option in my opinion. These last two players here we'll cover, Martinelli and Bailey. Martinelli I'm not too keen on for expected minutes, and Bailey's opening fixtures kind of put me off the Aston Villa assets. We're kind of missing out some key lower priced assets here in the 5.5, so let's take the defence away and scroll to 5.5, because there is a player I really want to at least touch upon for you guys at home. Ben Brenton Diaz, 5.5, good option. Minter, really great option at 5.5, possibly my favourite. But Emile Smith-Rowe takes the crown for me with the fixture swing in game week 2. Going at some nice fixtures from there. There is a little bit of a rumour that Andreas might be leaving Fulham because of the signing of Smith-Rowe. So, yeah, he's going to get minutes. Maybe he won't get minutes in this first fixture, but I don't think you're actually going to be playing against Man United away from home. Although, if you had to, I don't think it's the end of the world. But, yeah, that's sort of what we're looking at for the cheaper end of the midfielders there. Kicking things off with the forwards now, of course, you've got the likes of Haaland and Isak at the top. Really good ownership across the board in terms of FPL. I do own both Haaland and Isak at the moment. Of course, good reason to own both of these players here. Good fixtures across the board for Haaland. Maybe the Arsenal fixture you're looking at, and possibly the Newcastle fixture in terms of weak points, but it's Haaland, it's City. You know what you're getting for 15 million. It's a massive, massive commitment in terms of price point. And I've seen people go without Haaland, and I did go without Haaland in my bench boost game week 1 draft. If you're interested in that video and kind of strategy of getting ahead of everyone as quick as possible, go and check my latest video on my channel. Havertz at 8 million. I do not like this pick whatsoever. I think he'll play slightly deeper than people are assuming for those 13% that own him. Yeah, I just can't. I can't see it being a good pick. Maybe if he starts playing really far forward, you can kind of start justify getting Havertz in, being probably one of the cheaper, more nailed assets. But it just depends where he is going to play. In my opinion, he plays deeper. Watkins, 9 million. For me, the start of the season isn't time to have Aston Villa assets, but if you want to kind of hold them longer term, you can get them in game week 1 and kind of just hold them for a very, really long time. Maybe when Champions League starts to come by, you can maybe look to offload a player like Watkins, because maybe Aston Villa struggle with the addition of European football. Muniz is a really good option at 6 million for me. Him and Wood, which you might come down to in a minute, but yeah, up there for fixture swing in terms of game week 2 onwards. I think Fulham will be a great squad this season. Dominic Solanke here, wearing a Bournemouth top, but he is a Spurs player and is in my personal team in FPL. I think the opening 2 fixtures are really attractive, and for me, could take Son's penalties off him. We kind of just don't know who's taking Spurs penalties anyway, but I think Solanke could come in and take Heung-min Son's penalties away from him. He's got a better record on pen Solanke, so there's obviously that for Spurs to keep in their mind. But I think it's kind of a longer term signing than people are kind of thinking. Yes, it's a new signing, but you got a player there who may outlive Son at Spurs, so possibly could take the penalties now as sort of a trusting. I could be talking out my arse. In fact, I know I'm talking out my arse, but it is a possibility Solanke could take penalties away from Heung-min Son or James Maddison or whoever the hell has penalties at Spurs. I guess we'll find that out. Tony hasn't moved away from Brentford, so I'm going to assume he's going to start playing decent minutes for them. Of course, when he does play and is in form, plays amazing football with the likes of Mbeumo and Wissa. Player to look out for Brentford, in my opinion, is Kevin Shand at 5.5. You heard it here first. Not a lot of people talking about him, but good pre-season. But I think his minutes are the only worry and really the only thing keeping me away from that kind of pick, in my opinion. João Pedro, kind of the final player I kind of want to touch on. Obviously, 17% ownership. A lot of people will be wanting to know kind of the opinion on the João Pedro pick. For me, in my team, it's João Pedro versus Dominic Solanke. Who do I go for? I sort of think maybe the fixtures are kind of similar in terms of difficulty across the board. Of course, we know that João Pedro has penalties when he's on the pitch. I think Danny Welbeck actually took the last few penalties for Brighton when João Pedro wasn't on the pitch. but obviously something to keep in mind. Yao Pedro should be on penalties when he is on the football pitch, and 5.5, I think he's really great option. But for me, it's Dominic Solanke versus a Yao Pedro at that kind of third strike spot, especially with Haaland and Isak being very much nailed in people's team. But that is the predicted points for all positions in FPL across the board. The tools used here are from Fantasy Football Hub. Again, I will mention it is 50% off, and if you don't win your mini leagues, you get your money back. Terms and conditions do apply, but I think it's a really great deal if you want to get better at FPL. Link is in the description. Just to outro the video, I want to give you a huge thank you to watching to this point now. Of course, I post every single week constant FPL content for you guys at home, so I'd really appreciate if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're into more short form content, go and follow my TikTok page. The link is in the description to go do so. I'm hoping to hit 1,000 followers over there to start posting my deadline streams on TikTok as well as on YouTube. But that is everything for today's video. Thank you so much for watching again, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.